right, busy weekend. We got a whole lot to cover in this little section. So as you can see, I have built a battery tray. This is all out of 1-inch stock. The bottom is framed at a 3x1 all the way around, and then the sides are 1.5 inches by 1. So I built the battery box. It sits right on top of this batten. And then there are 13/16 stringers, one here and one here, that help spread that weight out, that run the full length all the way down the sides. You can see my little chrome bronzed clip. The exact same clips or straps or whatever you want to call them that I used for the fuel tank. I've got one on each side. I have not strapped the battery down yet, but it is a Group 27 battery. It's probably about 65 to 70 pounds worth of battery. But I did buy a good marine deep cycle. Because this battery is primarily for the stereo and to run interior lights and stuff like that. So I wanted something that could handle being discharged and recharged a lot. So the battery box is done. Or I guess we could call it tray. It's officially mounted. It's been encapsulated in epoxy. It's in the boat forever. The battery box is installed. The battery is installed. My 4-gauge wire runs are now officially done, terminated, connected to the battery. So the Zip is on its own power now. It's got its own battery. Prior to this, I just had some little alligator clips and probably 10-gauge wire that ran from each of my terminals across the shop over to my battery bank on the floor. I was using it. But now the Zip has its own battery. Now, I mounted this in this position. You can see the motor well right here, where it sits. It is behind, as you can see. We'll get on the same plane as the seat. It is behind the back of the seat. It'll clear. I wanted the battery in this position because it'll help kind of offset my weight in the driver's seat. Not near enough, but it'll help anyhow. So I wanted it on the rear left. This is where I planned on putting the battery from day one. Originally, I was going to have the battery turn 90 degrees, spanning across 2 battens. Problem is, it just physically would not fit in that space. Inside a battery box. And again, there's no way I was going to let a lead acid battery be mounted not in a battery box. It had to have a plastic box. So this is the only place that the battery will physically fit back here. This is the only location. Originally, again, I was going to span these 2 battens with it 90 degrees of how it is now, but there wasn't enough room between the motor well and the back of the seat to clear. It would have hit the back of the seat. So this is the only place physically that the battery could fit. But there it is, shy of getting the nylon strap over the top. It's done. Something else we did this weekend, you can see we now have wires all the way back here. The orange is my tack signal. The white is my bilge pump number 2. So they're all the way to the back. The red here is for my stern light. That's obviously not installed because we don't have a deck. Then we'll come over to this side. The yellow is my ACC from the key, the ignition on. The red is the start from the key. The white is bilge pump number 1. So they're all ran down here. You can see everything's been harnessed up about every 6 inches. We have our zip tie anchors. Every 3 inches we have a zip tie bunching the harness together. This is what I talked about. This is a 1/4-inch aluminum round rod. This is the bridge deck. And, you know, these used to droop right here because it's, I don't know, 14, 18-inch span. And so what I did was I drilled a 1/4-inch hole about a 1/4-inch deep on each side. I cut the rod so that it was about a 1/4-inch longer than this opening. Mixed up some epoxy, filled the holes, roughed up the edges of the aluminum round rod, got it in here, stuck it way deep into that hole, lifted it up, and then kind of slid it into this hole and just centered the rod between the 2 holes. But that's all it is, just a little piece of aluminum solid bar, and it's just to basically carry the harness across this span. So you can see everything zip tied across it. This striped wire, that is our patch cords. You can see them plugged into the amp over there. I actually needed 8 foot, couldn't find 8 foot, so they had 12 foot. I've got an extra 4 foot coiled up over here. And same thing, zip tie anchors up underneath there to hold it. It won't hurt anything, a couple extra feet in there. But that's done. The blue wire here is my remote on for the amp. So when the deck gets turned on, it tells the amp to turn on. So that's all done. These wires are all harnessed up, complete, nice, pretty. And we come forward here, underneath the frame. Everything is nice and clean. Comes right around the side of the deck here. Everything's in a nice clean harness through the frame. This hole here is where my steer cable will come through, right along behind the deck here on top of this stuff, between the speaker magnet and the outside of the shear. I was a little bit worried because I hadn't actually physically tested to see if there was enough room to get the steer cable through here like I was hoping. Until this weekend, there's enough room to do that. So all the terminations are done on the amp. I don't know if you can see it, but all the wiring is ran down that side, just like on this side. Complete, done. And then we'll come over to this section, and I'm pretty well done behind the dash. Pretty well. All my wire is all zip tied every 3 inches or so. All the anchors are secure. Everything's pretty clean back here, ran to where it goes. As clean as I could make it and still have everything easily accessible. Again, everything's labeled. Like if we go up to this white wire, you can see that's bilge number 2 positive. So everything's covered in dust, as you can see. But I think the zip wiring is officially done. I think we're done with wiring. Obviously, I have to buy my bilge pumps and install those and terminate them. When I get the motor, I have to terminate the ACC and ignition wire and the RPM signal wire. I still have to terminate all those back at the motor, but all the wiring's to its destinations. It's all harnessed. It's complete, done, ready. And then something I was working on today is building the box for the subwoofers. See if you can see in there. Yeah, sorta. Anyhow, this is 3/4 inch MDO, which I was unaware existed. I've always built all of my subwoofer boxes out of MDF. The particular supplier that I normally buy the MDF through was out. All they had was MDO, and I said, well, hell, I guess we'll give it a try. It wasn't until I got home and did some research that I realized that MDO is MDF. It's just been infused with a water, we'll say resistance. I won't say waterproofing, but it's a water resistance that the MDF is infused with, and they call it MDO. This is really commonly used for like outdoor signs and things like that. So more suited to a marine environment anyhow. Everything is, there's still overlap here. None of this is finished. As you can see, I've got one hole cut. I haven't cut the other hole yet. Just got tired. Put in 14 hours this weekend. You can see the overhang here. But everything is pre-built. You can see the box is a wedge shape. 5 inches at the top, 8.5 at the bottom. That turns out to about 1.8 cubic feet, which is right in the middle range of what the subwoofer's like. Again, we're running Kicker Comp RT 10-inch shallow mounts, dual voice coils, and they will work from 0.4 cubic feet up to 2 cubic feet, something like that, 0.4 to 2 per sub in a sealed box, or 1.4, anyhow, sorry. So I'm right in about the middle of their sweet spot. But I got to finish this box off. After I get the other hole cut, sand everything down, make it nice and pretty, smooth. I'll disassemble the box and then seal all the seams. Right now it's just dry fit. So I'll get everything sealed, reassembled, then I'll come back and I'll plug all of these holes, sand everything smooth. It's going to get 2 coats of epoxy encapsulation. After that, it'll get 2 coats of primer and 2 coats of white. So when everything's said and done, it'll be just a smooth box. The subs will be firing forward towards the back of the front seat. I'll probably leave about 2 inches between the face of the box and the front seat. So when you come in here and you look from the back, all you'll see will be white back here, you know, just the white box. And if you're not paying attention, it will appear to be just the back of the front seat. And again, that's kind of what I'm going for. I don't want anything to scream that this isn't a vintage boat, you know. Basically, I don't want people to look at it and go, oh, geez, this is brand new, obviously. So, you know, I'm trying to do little things like that to hide it. And I think painting the box a nice glossy white will help hide it in there. So, incredibly long-winded update, but we're making fantastic progress. So here's a look at the sub box now after it has been fully assembled and then had all the exterior sanded to flush everything up real nice and clean. We'll go inside the box, and you can see there's 3 holes in the box. The purpose of that center divider is just to add some stiffness in the middle of the box. It doesn't, obviously with the holes in it, it's not made to separate the air chambers. But we'll go over to the edge here. Everything turned out really, really clean. We'll step back and you can see it's a slight wedge. This would be the square side. This will be the side roughly a 12-degree angle to match the front cockpit seat back. So anyhow, it's all dry fit now. I have to fully disassemble the box, and I'm going to use a compound to glue the box up known as Glen-L. This stuff is absolutely clear. It is incredibly sticky. It's a really, really good material for assembling sub boxes. The reason I happen to know about that Glen-L is because my brother actually worked for a local stereo store, and they assembled all of their custom-made boxes with that Glen-L. So I'm 100% positive it's going to work and work well. But that's where we are. We have to fully disassemble the box now and Glen-L all the seams, reassemble it, let it cure up for, oh, I don't know, probably, I'd say a good week before we put any power to it, but we may turn it on and just test it lightly after a day or two. But making fantastic progress. So I took a few minutes to dry fit the subs in the box and then fit the box up in the zip. Now I measured 45 inches between the vertical upright of this armrest and the vertical upright of this armrest. So I made my box 44 3/4 of an inch, so that should have given me about an 1/8 inch of play on each side, and it looks really good. It fits in there really nice. It's a little bit of a contortionist act to get it in there because the box is slightly taller than the lowest spot, so you can't just set it on the floor and slide it in. You have to set it on the floor, roll it back, slide it on an angle, then stand it up, and as you're standing it up, you have to slide the box back straight. And once it's stood up in there, it clears everywhere. I made the box specifically low enough to fit right underneath my amplifier. So you can see the corner of the box and the amp, there's about a 1/2 inch of clearance there. It's tight all around, but there's still a ton of room from the face of the box back to where your butt's gonna be back here. You know, an inch or 2 off of this seat back, what will be the seat back. There's still a ton of leg room. I think an average height person, average height being short like me, 5'7", 5'8", will be able to sit back here with their legs extended and probably not touch the box. And then again, looking in from the back side, with any luck, when this is all nice and white and painted pretty, it won't look like anything other than the back of the front seat. So, of course, I had to screw the subs in just to see how it was going to look. I still have to fully disassemble the box and glue everything up. That's my plan for tonight. But, oh my goodness, this zip's going to have some bang. You're going to hear this thing. I am so excited. I can't tell you how tempting it is to just hook up the wires real quick and listen to it, but I can't. The box isn't glued together. I'll end up blowing the box apart and splitting seams without it being glued up. But it is again, the face of the box is the exact same angle as the front cockpit seat back. It's a custom built to fit the zip box. this is the position it's pretty much going to live in, basically from the face of the woofer. It gives me 2 inches of clearance between here and the back of the seat. Plenty of room for the subs to reach full excursion without hitting anything. And then what I'll do, after I get the box all sealed, get all the holes plugged, get it sanded, sanded, epoxied, primered, painted, I'll reinstall the box without the subs, and then I'll drill down through the box, through the floor plank, and I'll pick one of the wide planks, probably this one out here, maybe that one out there, in 2 places, and I'll drill all the way through the box and through the floor plank, and I'll install some nutserts into the bottom of that floor plank, and use stainless 3/8 bolts to actually bolt the box to the floor planking. So once it's in there, it'll be in there good. It's not going to rock around or get loose or have to worry about it sliding or falling over. It'll be bolted to the floor planking. But is that not bad ace? Look at that thing. Oh my goodness. Zip's got some bump. Zip has got some bump. It's going to be the loudest one on the lake. Alright, well, as you can see, the box is now sealed on the inside. It is sat for 2 days. You can see that Glen-L is just crystal clear. Really, really clear stuff. But we'll back out of the box here. You can see it's speckled now, just like the boat. Just like the boat was. But basically, I went and got some Famo wood. This is Famo wood. I don't even remember. Natural Tapello. I don't know. I just picked something that kind of looked close to this. Not that you're even going to see any of this. It'll all be buried in paint. But anyhow, so as you can see, the back's all speckled. I just lightly sanded the entire outside of the box. I rounded over all of my edges. There are no more squared edges anymore. And this is just the very first preliminary, knocking the sharp edges off sand. I'll come back and clean it up some more tomorrow. But I wanted to get those edges off because this stuff, it's pretty fragile. And it seems like, every time you move the box, set the box down, roll the box over, you're denting edges, you're knocking little corners off. And so I decided I'd go ahead and sand all these edges anyhow. It's gonna have to be once it's in the boat. I just think it looks a little bit better than a hard square edge. But so I sanded all of that, came back and plugged all of these holes. Again, this is Famo wood, just like what I used on the boat, but not mahogany this time. And I've got all the sides sanded down flush. Again, I disassembled the box entirely, and I put that Glen-L on the part and the part it's attached to, a real thin coat, and then screwed everything back together. And it was squeezing out all of my seams all the way around the box, so I got a good seal on it. I let that cure for 2 days, and then I came back with a straight edge razor and I cut all of that Glen-L that was sticking out, all the goobers and blobs, cut them all off flush, sanded the entire outside of the boat, Famo wooded it, and here we are. I'll let this sit overnight, and then I'll come and sand all of this flush, and then it'll be ready for its first coat of epoxy. So, making good progress. So, I've got all of the holes filled, sanded down. Just like on the hull, they tend to suck in a little bit, the Famo wood does over the hull. So I came back today and did a second application, then sanded again, all of them off. So now they're all perfectly flush. Mounted the subs. I series wired the voice coils because it's dual voice coil, and then I paralleled the subs. And I've got my multimeter plugged into it, and we're showing a 2.3 ohm load. So that's pretty dang close to what what it's supposed to be. I mean, we were shooting for a 2 ohm load, so we're sitting at 2.3. That's pretty dang good. So we know our wiring's right. I'm getting ready to set these up in the boat, and I think we're going to test them. So as you can see, the box is substantially darker now. That's because I have coated it. You can probably see the color difference from out here versus inside. Coated the whole thing in epoxy. I did all the outside, and then I also did this inner lip of both subs, and up top the inner lip in there. This MDF was like a sponge. I mean, it really soaked the epoxy in really, really quick. So I'm gonna let this, again, it's cured now, but I'm gonna let it set up overnight. Sand the entire outside one more time, put a second coat of epoxy on it, let it cure and call it done. I did, in fact, drop this in the Zip and hook it up. Took probably 15-20 minutes just playing with settings in the stereo, adjusting the gain on the amp. It is loud. It is very loud. I'm sure the neighbors are real pissed off at me. And I didn't spend a great amount of time dialing it in. I just played with it a little bit. Basically, I've got the amp and the mids crossed over through the deck. Again, that's a nice thing about the Pioneer deck, and I'll probably do a video in the future just devoted to the deck, because there's so many very, very cool features about it that I want to mention. But again, the deck has a high pass filter to filter out low frequencies to your mids and tweets, and it has a low pass filter. I set both of those at 100 hertz. So 100 hertz and below goes to the amp and subs. 100 hertz and above goes to my mids and tweets. And I'll do some more finite adjustment once I get, you know, all the floor planking done and everything clear coated and the box officially mounted in the boat and we're moving on, you know, starting on decking. Then I'll play with the adjustments a little bit more, but just dinking around with it, just a real quick 15-minute setting on everything. It is very, very loud. It is everything I was hoping it was gonna be, and some. I have the gain on my amp slightly less than half. So I was playing with this earlier today. Pretty damn loud. I mean, pretty loud, real loud. And I'm still below half of what the amp can do. After running it for about 15-20 minutes hard, I went over and put my hand on the amp and it's just lukewarm. So it's not even working the amp, which is great. But we'll get some video, of course, of the stereo going and all that crap sometime in the future. But coat it in epoxy. We'll get it sanded up, do a second coat of epoxy, and we'll get some primer and paint on it. Making fantastic progress. And it's loud. So you can see the gloss on it now. We have sanded the entire outside of the box, and I sanded it this time with 120, only because I ran out of 80 for my random orbital. But roughed it all up, took all of the bumps and lumps out of it, did a second coat of epoxy, and here it is. You can see the reflection. It's still very wet. You can still see brush strokes in it. But much higher gloss than with the first coat. The first coat just basically instantly soaked into the wood. But that's good. It sealed it up. When I sanded it, knocked off all the high spots, came back with a second coat, and it's very shiny now. So it's very, very waterproof. We'll let this cure for a couple of days. We'll sand it up and get the first coat of primer on it. We're making good progress. So here's the box now. This is after 2 coats of primer. We'll come around to this side. Here's a look at the back of it. And I am still using, or did use, the exact same Interlux pre-coat that I used on the hull. This is the same primer. You can see the date on it, April 25th of 15. It was still good. It was kind of thick in the bottom. I had to scrape it a bit and mix it well and shake the crap out of it. But it came right back. So put a coat on, let it set for a couple of days, sanded it with Scotch-Brite, wiped it down, put the second coat on. It's now sat for a couple of days. Tomorrow I'll Scotch-Brite it again, and then I'm going to use my white Interlux Bright Side. This is, again, Blue Glow White. Same thing that my entire hull is painted in underneath, except then, of course, you know, I taped it off and painted the blue, so just the boot stripe is all you see. But exact same stuff here. Same story with it. April 2nd, 2015. So both these have been sitting around over a year. I had probably a third of a quart left of this. maybe a little bit more. I've got about the same left of this, and it's just enough to do 2 coats of each on the box. So making good progress, and we'll get, I think it looks a whole lot better painted now. It just looks a lot better. But, anyhow, we'll get this sanded up tomorrow and get the first coat of white on. Making good progress. So we've got the very first coat of Bright Side, Interlux Bright Side Blue Glow White again. Got the very first coat of that on the box. You can see the gloss on it, but there's also, much like on the boat, and it may be hard to tell on the camera, but there are light and dark spots because it's a pretty thin coat. So we'll just let it cure up a day or two, and then give it a light sanding again with Scotch Brite, and put the final second coat on, and the box will be done. Now we come over to the front. You can see some lighter brush strokes here and there. But again, we're just trying to get the first coat of color on. I don't care if it's fully covers everything. It's more important to me that I get a good thin coat and as even as possible all the way around the box. So first coat of Blue Glow White is on. One more coat to go, and the box will be done. Making good progress. All right, well, we now have the second coat of Bright Side Interlux Blue Glow White on the box. It's very, very shiny, pretty smooth. You can see the reflection. It's still wet, of course, but turned out really nice. And then here's the face of the box also. You can see the reflection of the boat up here in it, so not too bad. We'll let this cure up for, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 10, 15 days, however long it takes to cure up. And we'll get it reassembled. Making good progress. All right, well, it's officially October 1st, 2016 for the month of September 2016. We went up 29 hours. So good hours this month. Made a lot of progress on the boat. 29 hours for September. We went up $415.57 this month. We're able to put a decent amount of money into the Zip, and you know, buy enough material to carry me a good ways through October as well. So $415.57 brings us up to $6,630.44 invested total in the Zip, and our 29 hours brings us up to 546.5 hours. So we're making great progress. Again, the dollars keep climbing, but that's to be expected. So this month, we went up 9.25 hours on the electrical. We finished all the electrical work basically in the boat. All the wire runs are done. When I get the bilge pumps, I still have to wire those in and things like that. But all the wires are ran. 2.5 hours on epoxy coat. 14.25 hours into the subs. 3 hours into the paint. Now I could have, just included the epoxy coat and the paint and all that into the sub box. We're looking at 16.75, 17, 18, 19.75, almost 20 hours in the box. But I decided to do just like I have been and break it all out into the individual sections. So the 9.25 on the electric, that brings us up to 33.25 in the electrical total. The epoxy, we got 2.5 on the epoxy, and that brings us up to 39 hours total in the epoxy. New category subs for 14.25. And paint we added on because we painted the box. We added our 3 hours of paint on up here for a total of 31 hours into the paint. So we're basically in the same spot we were. I've just been letting the sub box cure for the last few days. This sheet here is 1/2 inch Meranti marine ply. Hopefully you can see how many layers there are in this imported marine. It's really dense stuff. A lot more layers than the American-made stuff. But anyhow, so this is going to be our seat bases and seat backs. We'll get started on that this month in October. Also from McMaster Car, this tube holds some aluminum 3/4 by 3/4 1/8 inch leg. I guess we could call it C channel or U channel, whatever you want to call it. 2 4-foot sections, and that's going to be part of my seat backs. and we'll see how all that goes together here in the next month. But so we've got the wiring done. I would call it done. The wiring's done on the Zip. Everything's, again, to where it's going. It's just hanging here, but it's all there. Everything's harnessed up nice. So electrical's finished. I think probably in October we're going to get the seat bases or seat frames officially located and screwed down. We'll get the seat back and seat base ply done for both the front and rear cockpit. We'll also, let's see, where else can we go? I'll probably get the steer cable officially routed, installed, and we'll probably drill the hole through the motor well for that to go through as well. Again, we still have to do another epoxy coat on the motor well. So after I get the seat back and bases done, I'll probably buy my foam and get that cut to fit. Then I'll have to remove the seat frames, the seat back, seat base, sub box, and again, we'll probably get that bolted in, officially bolted in this month. But then I'll have to pull all of that stuff back out, and we'll get the floor planks out and start epoxy coating them and working on our UV clear coat on all of this bright wood in here. So that's where we're at. We're making fantastic progress. This thing's just getting closer and closer. I can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. But we're making fantastic progress. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe, rate, and comment. Love reading your guys' comments. I do my best to comment back. And we'll catch you on the next update of building the Zip.